The vehicle I'm driving is a 1970. The first 5 characters of the VIN are JS09U. Standard equipment on this model is a molding group, overhead consolette, leather front bucket seats, and a dress-up rear finish panel. What am I driving? This is the 1970 Dodge Challenger RT SE 440 Magnum, one of 733 ever made. That's Mopar. Hey everybody, Mark Warman here with Graveyard Cars. We have a very special episode for you tonight. We are delivering a 1970 Dodge Challenger RT SE F4 Green Poly air conditioning to Mr. Brian Lansford. Brian has flown all the way out from Chicago to take delivery of his car. This is one of only 733 cars built. We've been working on it for about a year, maybe a year and a half.
4.
Well, you know what? I took extra time to make sure it was right. That's the point. Try to.
Okay.
So stay tuned. We've got a great show. We're going to talk about the car, where it came from, how long Brian's had it, the steps that it took, and how you really can't judge a book by its cover. Keep watching.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
It has been established that the unburied dead are coming back to life. Because of the obvious threat, this station will remain on the air day and night.
When Brian reached out to me, I guess it was maybe almost 4 years ago, about the RTSE, he sent me some pictures of it, and definitely in pictures didn't even look like it needed a restoration, but he's a car guy. You're a used car dealer too, right? You
Correct.
actually have a car lot back in Chicago. So he knows cars, he knows when they're right and when they're wrong and what they need, so I trust him on that. But what I thought was the coolest thing, because I would have loved to have my high school car back, even to this day, and I just never did, is this was your high school car.
It was. My name is Brian Lansford. I'm from Wadsworth, Illinois. I own a 1970 Dodge Challenger RTSE 440 Magnum, and I also own this 1970 Dodge Challenger convertible. Back in April of '83, I bought my 70 RTSE. It's a 440 Magnum automatic, air conditioning, loaded with power toys. At 16 years old, my dad and my brother, who were also in the business with us, helped me locate the car and buy it. And you know, I was in love with the car, so it was something I didn't feel I would ever part with.
And you haven't, really?
No.
And so you've had it how many years then? Whatever that is.
4 years.
A lot. Jeez, that's
34
awesome.
years.
Well, I just say from one car guy to another, congratulations, because that's a difficult task. And to even recognize that it was as cool as it was when you got it, I think it's just spectacular. So, do you expect that the way it'll look now is probably even better than it was when you got it at 16, or was it?
I would believe so.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I sent it here.
Yeah.
Because it was a restoration I knew I always wanted.
And you'll never sell the car, right?
No.
It's just not for sale.
Nope,
So,
not at all.
Years later, we got slowed down because of the move into the new shop. And I know you and I had talked about that.
Right.
But one of the first things that happened after we got in here was Tony D'Agostino came out. He would like us, me, you, to authenticate it and give him some tips on exactly what's left on it to make it a nice car. For me, it's the ultimate compliment to have Tony out and to be able to walk around these cars. Going over the RTSE, I know he knows, and he's one of the few guys in the world that I can say that about.
Upon a glance here, you see this overhead light?
Absolutely.
You see what's wrong with it?
Yeah, it's puckered down right there at the aluminum.
No, sir.
Oh, the lens is missing.
No. You see here, I'm Mr. Parts guy, but that's a C-body light. The E-body light has a switch that goes front to back to turn on and off, because it looks the same.
Didn't know that.
But it's not exactly the same. See, that's a knob radio, and 1970s would have been the thumb wheel. The AM/FM would have been the thumb wheel.
Even the AM/FM would have been a thumb wheel in 70.
Well, the AM's a knob. a knob radio.
Oh, right. Oh, and
But-
the AM/FM.
And the AM/FM is the thumb wheel.
Okay. Have you seen him lately? He's just obsessed with Philly steak sandwiches. I'm sorry, Tony, but my God, man. I mean, I'm not saying he's fat, but his high school photograph was an aerial shot. Anyway, when he came out here, sorry about that, T. When he came out here, we went over a lot of the things that made that a unique RTSE, but he was blown away by how much it was original.
71 to 4 trunk lid molding. It has a little ridge in it.
Has that style line down that's common on the 71 to 74.
Where the 70 was smooth. Just little style changes they
And the
made.
quarter extensions are actually built into
part of it.
the
That's-
rear finish mold.
That's probably the only reason they
The
are
SC
correct,
finish
because it's
panel.
part of it.
Right, exactly. So go back and see, because I'm at the wrong angle to see, but it looks like it's
Yes, it is.
369, 170,
173,
369.
369.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So we have a numbers matching engine.
Good.
And what do we have?
Well, that's what he thought, so I'm glad for that.
And on the transmission case.
Okay.
The car has the hard parts. It's not missing anything.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is probably the AC line. Otherwise than that, it's a lot of little detail and stuff.
Right.
You can bring the car up to a nicer level.
I think the compelling thing that made me want to do the car was, number one, you're a car guy. I like that. Two is you had the car for so long, and I was envious of that. When I think about what ones do you want to try to bring back, let's try to bring some of those ones back that maybe most people would just look at and say, oh, it's fine the way it is because it's not a $2 million car. To me, I think it's a $1 billion car with all of that stuff because you cannot go make it again. You can make a reproduction fender tag. Dave Weiss does a beautiful job on those. But they're only original once. Broadcast sheets you can't reproduce. You can't make a motor out of thin air. You could get a date-coded one or a warranty one, but to come up with one with all the numbers on it, that's a 1 in a billion, 1 in a million. So when the car first showed up here, I thought that, again, we had driven it a little bit. I thought that it really drove nice. As I remembered, you told me it was a pretty good runner driver. You had no problems with it. So we knew part of our approach was going to be not necessarily jumping into the drivetrain from an overhaul standpoint, but more from a cleanup standpoint. And we'll get into that in a little bit because there was more cleanup that had to go to it than maybe what we both thought. One of the things that I agreed with you early on was about the wheel and tire combination. Now, you've got the broadcast sheet, and I remember looking at it. The car originally was what wheels?
Steel wheels, 14s with factory full-size hubcaps.
Full wheel covers on a 14-inch, which is not a overly desirable combination. That's what it had. Actually, not only did it leave the factory with it, but that's what it had when you bought the car.
Correct.
Give me real quick the rundown of where that car traveled after you got rid of it.
It went from me to Wisconsin, and then it got sold a very short time afterwards to another guy that was in Tennessee.
Okay.
And his wife got ill. He turned around and sold to a collector car dealer, who then took it to a collector car auction in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Gotcha.
Another collector car dealer bought it from Roanoke, Virginia.
Oh.
And a friend of mine found one on eBay that was similar. So I looked at that link and I started nosing around because I was sad for my
That made you
Challenger.
start
I missed
thinking, didn't it? Yeah.
And I found the car.
I get it. I get
So
it.
once I found it, I contacted that guy and tried to reacquire it.
Again, another thing that I thought was really cool as we started looking into the car after we got it back was how many of the features still worked on it, which is unusual. So like it's got the C26 overhead consolette. All three of the lights work. They never work. They oftentimes don't work when we're finished with them. We got to jump back into them, work on them again, put them back, because they're pretty archaic in their design. They all work just like it was a new car. The doors opened and closed like they were supposed to do. It ran and drove and tracked like it was supposed to do. The seats, I was amazed at the seats, which is why you and I discussed possibly saving maybe the back seat, maybe the front seat. We kind of had that go around in the beginning days. The back seat's original. The door trim panels are original. The fiber headliner in it, which is unique to the C26, all original stuff. Your dash, really all we had to do to your dash was go back through and clean up, restore a couple of the gauges, get the correct knobs on the radio.
Leaving some of the original DNA in the car was something that we talked about. I wanted to do that if we could.
Yeah, and a lot of that kind of stuff, again, I don't mind preserving because I think it's in the best interest of the car. But sometimes they're just ratted out. If you go out back and you look at the 100 and some cars that are out there, most of them don't have a prayer stating anything on them. Very little. Very little. Maybe the original motor if it's still in it.
And that's why you thought it was refreshing to get mine in, because you had made the comment to me, most are coming in rusted or missing motors and pieces and whatever,
Right.
and most people would look at my car and not even restore it to the level I'm doing.
And I
Because it was a
guarantee you
nice
they
car when
wouldn't.
it started.
I guarantee you they wouldn't.
Right.
That is the biggest segue to what we found when we disassembled the car and sent it out and had it dipped. So stay tuned after the break, everybody. We've got lots to talk about on this Challenger. Again, very rare car, very special to this gentleman right here, and now very special to us. We're gonna cover the body work, the paint work, what we had to do to the drivetrain, and why we saved some components on this car versus replacing them like we would have normally done. So be sure, stay tuned. It's gonna be fun. So when the car came back from the dipper, it's in its rawest form. You can see everything. You can't judge a book by its cover. So here's this really nice, two-owner, well, we'll just call it a very close, yeah, it was. I mean, it got flipped a couple of times out there, but I mean, it's a very close to home car.
Right.
That looked and ran and drove better than most cars did when they were new. But when we get all that stuff off, that's where we see the sense. There were a lot of patches on the, let's just talk about the quarter panels. They had patches put into it, and they kind of a substandard job of putting patches in. Pretty much what you would have saw had it happen back in the early 70s. The front aprons, the inner fenders, they were both replaced previously, and they were just terrible the way they had welded them in. The aprons themselves were actually decent pieces. They may have been used ones that somebody had, but we had to take those out and put new ones back in and use our spot welder to be able to duplicate everything back.
In the early 80s, 83, 84, I had a cosmetic restoration done on the car.
Okay,
And,
so they just pieced in those pieces.
Yeah, and that was another example of why the car ended up out here so much later.
Yeah.
Because nobody was doing that kind of top shelf work.
It's not really saying anything bad about the shop. It's just probably for the time and the money and the resources.
Sure.
At that day, it was what it was. Chicago car, salty roads, that's what did the car in. When you look back through the pictures I took of the car and the ones that I shared with you, we ended up, just so you know, we did trunk floor extensions left and right, rear valance, rear body sill extensions, quarter panels, inner and outer wheelhouses. Now the Dutchman panel, beautiful, saved it, which is good because it has a lot of the unique holes in it that accommodate that special SE molding. And plus, by having that in space where it belongs, it establishes where everything else goes. So I'm glad that piece was good. But you go inside the car, the only floor we didn't replace was the pan that goes underneath the back seat. Ironically, it was good. But we did the left and right step wells, the main front floor. We did the left and the right frame rails in the back. And this is because it wasn't just like it was garbage, it's just that once it got dipped, things became thin and you could see the pitting. And between the pitting and where it actually would poke through, you knew you were compromised for quality.
13 years of driving in the
That's right.
It was an everyday drive.
You have to promise that car, even though we've undercoated it and done everything we're supposed to do and got the proper primers on it and all that stuff, you're not going to drive it in the snow.
Never.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure, because otherwise I might not be able to let it go.
Inside, all the time.
Good call. One of the things Brian wanted to do, and a lot of people wouldn't have, was to save the original vinyl body side moldings.
Correct.
And they're not attractive. I don't know why people bought them. And most of the time, even like Tony D'Agostino, right now we're doing a 70 Challenger for him that was a body side molding car. He says, lose them. This is Tony, the great Tony, Mr. Philly Steak himself. He says, lose those things, they're ugly. I want to put a longitudinal stripe on it.
Which is what most people did.
Which is what most people did because it's much sexier. But you actually opted to keep the original, and they were in really nice shape, so it would have been almost a shame to pitch them. But going over to the metal shop, the panels that got replaced, like the quarter panels, we had to duplicate those original holes. Now we used your original fenders, we used your original doors, but as far as the actual quarter panels themselves, we had to make the new holes for the body side moldings. Once that's done, the body man can go to town, and that's exactly what they did. They smoothed the car out to make it have that fit and finish like it never had when it left the factory. So when you see this thing, you're gonna realize that probably even when it was new, the doors didn't fit the quarters that good, the fenders didn't fit the doors. And it really was a pretty good car, like I say in the beginning, but they're even more refined now. So body, metal, rust proofing, dipping, disassemble, inventory, all of that stuff came out nice. And once we got going on it, it actually went pretty quick.
It did. I was out here a year ago May, and here we are, ready to give me the car back. I mean,
I love it.
It went fast.
It's the way it's supposed to go. Plymouth called the fresh air carb system, the N96, if you will, air grabber. That was their name for it, the air grabber. What was Dodge's name for the exact same N96 code? Was it cowl induction, ram induction, ram charger? You stay tuned after the break, I'll have the answer for you. All right, ghouls, how did we do on this one? This is good stuff right here. This takes me back to dragging the gut back up in the olden days. We always saw these call-outs on the hood. What did you guess that Dodge called the N96 option? If you said ram charger, you're 100% correct. Good job. If you said cowl induction, now that's a GM. Nobody cares about GM stuff, but that's what they call their cowl induction. Ram air, that was a Pontiac, the old Pontiac Death Knock heaps. That's what they call their cold air. But Dodge, the Ram Charger. Later, they actually made a Ram Charger vehicle, kind of like the Blazer. Its sister was the Plymouth Trail Duster. So there you go. The more you know. One of the things a lot of shops, I don't think, focus the attention on that I always did because I love the finish, is the primer and the block, the primer and the block. And I know you know what that means, but basically it's where we're trying to get rid of the scratches that are in the filler work that's on the car. We're trying to smooth it out to a point where Will can do his pre-paint work. So we load it with primer and we sand it back down, but we sand it with a block. We sand it until the highs go down to meet the lows. Then we primer it again. And then we get it wet with a wax and grease remover and we look at it. I'm proud of Will because he's come so far. Your car, when you see it, it'll blow you away because he has learned the art of blocking, priming, sanding, and then pre-paint and paint. So he did a phenomenal job blocking the car out. It did come out fantastic. He did his jam work first, then he did his pre-paint work. So as I told you before, we paint our cars twice. First one is to make sure we have a good substrate on it. It blocks everything out from underneath it, not gonna swell up again, but it also allows us to see if our block was true. Is it really that flat? And Will did a phenomenal job on that. So with that done, all he had left was his final paint work.
Now, put that on and adjust it. Just right. Pull it tight on your face. So right now in the booth, I have Landsberg's 1970 Challenger. This is the one that's the SE, gets a small rear window in the back. It's a pretty cool car. Alyssa's in here. She's actually stepped up quite a bit, wanting to do more out here, but I told her for her to actually be a part of what I do, I need her here first thing in the morning, ready to help. So she showed up right at 8 o'clock. I got her in a paint suit, respirator. She's in the booth and we're getting ready to go in and start painting this car together. If it was a pre-paint, you could paint it. Old Alyssa, you know, she probably wasn't gonna pay attention much and it would be hard getting her to actually understand what we're doing. But just the fact of her showing up at 8 o'clock in the morning speaks volumes. So I think she's here, she's focused, she's ready to actually learn what I do, and I think we're gonna come out great on it.
Can't mess it up too bad?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll let that sit for a couple more minutes.
Yep. So it looks like everything's good. Let that dry, go back in there. Then I'll probably just have to do a couple of back-to-back coats, then we should be done with color.
In your car lot, do you guys do any recon work? Or
Yeah, all the time.
In-house?
Yeah.
Okay. So who's the guy that has to order all the parts?
Me.
The car guy. See, that's how that works. So you know, while Will's down there doing his magic and he's blocking it and he's pre-painting it, that's just one thing he's got to focus on. I still got to focus on making sure he did that right. Got to make sure the metal guys did their stuff right. I also have to sit down with an OER catalog. Then I had to go out and look at your parts, and then I match them up to what I had on my list. Next thing you know, you're ordering literally hundreds of parts in one order. And if you think you're done, wait till all those parts come in and you put them on the car to find out you're still missing half again. Right. Be sure to stay tuned after the break, because just like our little Challenger rolled through the shop from area to area, we're doing the same thing. We still got to go over the paintwork, the assembly, the drivetrain, and some of those key components that we decided to save versus replace. So I would not be doing my job as an instigator if I didn't mention the vehicle that you just purchased. Tell everybody what it is. We're going to be restoring a car here for him. Not as convertible, that's still in the queue to get restored. 318 automatic, very rusty car, another Chicago rust story. We'll save it. But he just made what I consider to be perhaps one of the best scores of a lifetime when it comes to rareness and digs. I'll explain in a minute.
Ridge Farm, Illinois is a town of 906 people according to the sign entering the city limits here. And that back building on the far right with the garage door open is where the car resides. It's a 70 Challenger RT.
70 Challenger RT 440.
446 pack.
6-pack.
4-speed.
4-speed D21.
Super track pack.
A34.
Plum crazy purple.
Woo!
Black interior, black top, white longitudinal stripe.
Wait a minute. That sounds a lot like one we just did, except it was a 4-barrel car.
Correct.
Victim. RT 440 6-pack 4-speed. Now, the one thing this particular troublemaker would say is it numbers, buddy? Is it numbers? Yeah, it's got all that, but is it numbers?
It's numbers. It's a whole lot of numbers.
Numbers matching 446 pack 4-speed A34 FC7 V6W V1X over C6X9 interior.
That was a mouthful.
That is a mouthful. Love it. Welcome back, everybody. Still here with Brian Landsberg, out from beautiful Chicago. Chicago. And we are talking about a 70 RTSC. So far, we've covered where the car came from, which is a fantastic story. Had the car in high school, what can you say? I mean, that's one of the lucky ones right there. We've gone over all the extensive metalwork that really had to happen to be able to put this car back in the shape it's in now, the surprising metalwork. Now, we're going to talk about the paint, the drivetrain, the interior, the pieces that we decided we'd save versus replace. And hopefully, with any luck, we will be able to deliver you a beautiful 70 Challenger RT SE and blow your socks off. And I think you're going to be thrilled when you see this car. So as your car began to move through the shop, once we kind of got it off the back burner and got it going through the shop, things really start to domino.
Yeah, right here we got a beautiful 1970 Dodge Challenger RT SE, very rare Mopar here at the shop. Right now we're to the point where we're gonna have Larry come in from Larry's Interiors and do our vinyl top. Larry does all our vinyl tops and headliners. Unfortunately, on this car here, he will not be doing a headliner because it's got that overhead consolette and a formed headliner. But he will be doing the vinyl top, which is very unique because it has that formal roof with the small back window. As you can see, this outside edge right here is the original Dodge Challenger window opening. And then what this does is it actually goes in the existing window opening of the Challenger, and then this right here is gonna be our new size back window. Very rare, very hard to find. Nobody repops this back glass, so you gotta be really careful taking it out. And I'll tell you, I got about a half a day into taking this glass out because it was all urethaned in there, and getting all the old clips off, getting all the foam off and everything else. I got it sanded down, gave it to Will. Will put a nice coat of epoxy primer on it, so it's all ready to install. But as you can see, I go through and mark all my clip locations, so when Larry gets that vinyl over there, he'll have to actually stretch that vinyl over here and fold it into this window opening. So two things are gonna happen. It's gonna cover up all my clip locations, so I need to know where they're at, so I'm not having to pull his vinyl top back off to find the holes. But also, he's gonna have to put that foam in here because all these recesses for all the screws that I'm gonna put in here to go into the existing window hole, is all gonna be visible. So when he lays that foam over, he'll actually sand that foam so it'll be even with the roof of the car. So whenever that vinyl's stretched over this plug into the new location, it'll look so clean, like the car came with this small of a back window. So let's get this baby in here. All right, all screwed down and ready to go. So, there you have it. One tube, check that out, man. And I used every bit of it. I mean, that baby slammed to the ground. So there you go. Cool. Well, as you can see, I got the window plug put in our 70 Dodge Challenger for Lance Verks. He's gonna be super stoked to see the progress on his car. I got Larry coming in the morning. He's gonna knock out the vinyl top on this car. Very unique top on here. It's got all that foam on there with the small back window, SE option, very rare. So we're looking forward to seeing this car with the vinyl top on it all completed. Larry's all done installing our vinyl top. Did an amazing job. Car looks fantastic. So now I can get my hands back into the game and get going on this firewall. Wiper motor, brake power booster, master cylinder, brake lines, proportioning valve, you know, the firewall, actual brake lines, voltage regulator, ballast resistor, horns, and so on. So I'm just gonna try to get as many components on the firewall as I can so we'll be all ready for the engine, suspension, and drivetrain. Okay, well, I'm gonna get started here. I'm gonna start with my firewall brake line here. All right, so I got my master cylinder brake booster assembly in there. Got my firewall brake line. So now I'm gonna move on to my proportioning valve, divider valves, and all my lines that'll actually feed to the master cylinder. I'm gonna go ahead and put in that 3-speed wiper motor. It's a date-coded wiper motor. It was his original one. They did a great job, beautiful job restoring it. All right, so now I'm gonna put my horns on.
So one of the things that Brian and I talked about in the beginning days, and it wasn't an interest to save money because it's your baby, you wouldn't be spending anything on it. It was in the interest of what's right for the car. It ran so good. I will be the first to tell you, and Tony D'Agostino, anybody that's big time car guys, sometimes an original engine, there's nothing that runs like them when they're right. And no matter how many times we build them, they're never quite the same feel. So what we wanted to do with his car was to be able to save. Like in a perfect world, we wouldn't have had to rebuild the engine, we would have only resealed it and detailed it correctly. And when Doug got started on it, as soon as we took the valve covers off, I had called you and said, I can see where the valve guide seals were leaking and they were a little bit loose, so we decided to overhaul the heads. But we left the short block alone. We put a correct new oil pan, the 6-quart oil pan on it that wasn't beat up from years of driving it, but we detailed the outside of the engine correctly, right down to, you know, we had classic auto air. We sent out your original AC stuff, had them rebuild and restore all of those pieces, the lines, the compressor, the evaporator, all of that stuff. Doug went through, he detailed it, assembled the engine, the transmission was perfect, absolutely. Did you ever have it rebuilt?
Never. 28,000 mile car, never needed it.
The rear end had the problems that the drive shaft had. Pitting, lots of pitting. That's what we found in the suspension too. Originally we were talking about we were just gonna save all the original suspension pieces for it, detail them, put it back on, but we opted when lower control arms are bare metal with a cosmoline finish, you can't hide any of the pits. The best thing to do is find good date-coated donor pieces. So we did jump in a little bit further on the suspension and the steering. The drive shaft, I had a new replica made with your ends, so it looks right, it has all the right markings on it, but it's a nice new drive shaft, so it's not all pitted up. The rear end, basically, Will went through, once we had it stripped, we overhauled it, we went through all of it, sealed, brakes, everything. But that pitting in the housing, we were able to just primer it, block it, kind of like the car. Primer, block, primer, block. Next thing you know, we end up where we need to be. The leaf springs, we overhauled those. We put new kits in them, new liners. We painted those, sandblasted them and painted them. They look great. One of the coolest instrumentations ever to come in any car was your E-body rally dashes, A62. True or false? 1971 was the first year the Challenger RT model had an A62 rally full instrumentation cluster available as an option. If you think you know the answer, stay tuned after the break. All right, ghouls, how did we do on that one? Now, if you owned a 70 Challenger RT, don't throw anything at the TV until I finish my explanation. If you said 71 was the first year for the Rally Dash to be an option on the Challenger RT model, you are incorrect. It was never an option. The A62 Rally Instrument Cluster, this had 150 mile-an-hour speedometer, 8,000 RPM tachometer, full instrumentation of the gauges, and a clock with a wood grain finish. It was standard equipment on all Challenger RTs from 1970 to 1971. Gotcha, didn't I? So. You remember just recently, Bill Goldberg came out and he helped us put the drivetrain in, right?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, I like it.
Oh, now
somewhere in that range.
He's got the eye. He does.
I do. I got the eye. I can do a plumb bob. You ever do a plumb bob?
Ho, ho, who's next?
Uh-oh.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen?
There's the man.
How we doing?
I love it. Goldberg sticks his head in, screams his tagline, "Who's next?" which is actually something I used to use on the playground when I was getting ready to whoop a kid's ass. You know, I used to go, "Who's next?" Right? Anyway, he probably saw some old clips from me in 8mm. Doesn't matter where it came from, okay? It's his. You can use it.
Me
hey,
now, did
Bill,
you?
how you doing, buddy?
Why aren't you working on something black and wrinkled up, man?
You know, it was a great surprise having Bill show up. You know, he always makes a grand entrance.
To what do we know this?
Good to see you, young man.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, well. Cast of characters. How are we doing, gents?
Yeah.
Why was he here? What was the occasion?
Bill?
Yeah.
Bill came by to, man, I don't like, not obviously, I don't want to sound arrogant. I'm starting to get kind of big, you know, in the business and stuff. A lot of people want to rub elbows with me and stuff like that. I think you just kind of come pal around, you know, a little bit with the Mopar man, ambassador to Mopar, the brand advocate 2017 award down at SEMA.
You know, all levity aside, I was so proud when you got that. That was one of the coolest moments of my life because I know how much that means to you.
It is.
But you're not going to be alive to see it much longer if you don't get my damn truck. It's just, it is what it is. So what is it going to take? Do I have to get my hands dirty?
We got to put an engine in the RTSE. You can help us do that.
Why are we talking? Let's go.
That big bug-eyed thing. Good Lord, what the hell's wrong with those eyeballs? Anyway, he was just here to probably rub elbows and stuff like that. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, we got your drivetrain in. So we're green light go.
Well,
Big Bill.
No, hold on before the green light go. I came to you guys because you know everything, right?
And then Bill gets a fast one on Mark, says, "Hey, what's up with that rear crossmember on the transmission?"
If you knew everything, you'd know that this is a B-body crossmember going in an E-body car.
I mean, it's an easy mistake to make. They got all the cross members hanging on the wall. Doug's new. He just started doing these. And easy mistake to make.
Did you wipe the engine down?
No, I did.
Did you notice it?
I didn't notice it.
Sorry, guys.
Thanks, Bill. Bill noticed it.
Okay. I guess we're not going to lower it down right now. We're going to change out the transmission crossmember. Bill is right. This is interesting, right?
You taught me well.
What Goldberg doesn't understand, and you guys don't need to share this part with him, I put it on there to see if he'd pay attention. Right? It was a test to see if he was watching. And you know, kudos to him. He picked it right up, you know.
All right, guys, got the right cross member right here. Go for it.
Something keep me on my toes, are you guys?
Hey, Bill.
Bill's awesome.
What's the RS23J9B?
I don't know, that's why I pay you.
Yeah, you see what he said? That's why he pays me, all right? Yeah, that's looking good. I think you're good, Willie.
Good over here.
Yep, perfectly good.
So
okay,
far,
and
so
then
good.
I got to actually physically work with Goldberg on a car, which we haven't done that. We've goofed around a lot, and he says it, but he actually got in there and gave us a hand.
Helping install that engine was very rewarding. I very much like the individuality that Mopar collectors, owners bring to the table. It's something different.
The engine install went fantastic. Car dropped right down where it's supposed to. Now the engine, drivetrain, suspension, tires and wheels are finally on Landsverk's car. I can get it on the ground, roll it out, and start knocking out this interior. Car's really close, so I just want to get banging away on it.
Dave jumped on all the parts that were here and started putting it together. A lot of pieces on an SE, especially you talk about the power windows, right? Lots of sub-assemblies that needed to be built. But he was able to burn through that thing really quick. All things coming together on it. We're at a point now, after 4 years, that I believe, after all of this hoopla and craziness, that I can take you out, if you're ready, through that door and show you, arguably, one of the most beautiful 1970 Dodge Challenger RT 440 automatics on the planet.
For me, 34 years in the making. Let's do it. Can't wait.
That's it. Well, don't get crazy. This is Hollywood. We can't jumping the gun. Well, Springfield, but it would be in Hollywood if we were down there. We gotta go to break. Stay tuned. Can you do that?
I can do that.
See you after the break. Okay, that's it. You ready?
Let's go.
You're sure?
Can't wait.
You're stoked.
I'm stoked.
You got your Air Force shirt on?
Ready to roll.
You ready to buzz the tower?
I am.
Let's go do this thing. Okay, this is yours. Here we go. Got Davey and Will.
I think the car's amazing. It is over the top. It is more than I had ever expected. I knew Mark did good work. I knew I was sending it out here for this type of restoration, but I just never expected what I saw today.
Been a long time, buddy.
34
Is that absolutely
10 times better than what I remember. It is really over the top.
That is the most beautiful. Will, great job. Phenomenal job laying out the paint on that. Absolutely beautiful.
Awesome, Will. First car, first girlfriend, first love. That's kind of how this car is with me. It's a love affair with this car. I knew when I got the car it was something special, and has remained something special for me all these years.
We used your original SE trim panel, your original taillight bezels, because they were mint. They were just absolutely mint. The exhaust system is a brand new, accurate exhaust system, so it's a replica of the original. It's full rolled steel. Everything's the way it's supposed to be back there. Look at your back window trim, how beautiful everything came out and laid in. Getting this roll and getting this stuff, we actually had to do it twice to get it right. That's the way you're supposed to do it. That's the padded look you're supposed to have across the back of the SE. Use your original medallions. These are not the reproductions with the screw in the middle. Those are all your original pieces.
Those too, Mark.
What's that?
I painted those.
Did you?
Yeah.
I taught you how, right?
No, you actually insulted me because I couldn't pick out the red, white, and blue correctly.
Well, you had a Hemi orange, so yeah.
No, I didn't.
Last time I checked, I don't think the Star Spangled Banner is the old Hemi orange, white, and blue, right? Just got your original quarter windows. You know how you can recognize that?
Oh yeah, it's got pack bees in there.
That's the original body side moldings on there. This, to me, is one of the sleekest, most under-announced engines in the world, because the 440 Magnum is probably, arguably, the workhorse of all the Mopar lineup, absolutely. They talk about the six-pack, talk about the Hemis, but the 440 Magnum was a durable workhorse. It seemed to probably still ran 6 months after the car was built the way it did when it was new, unlike a six-pack and a Hemi, which you're constantly adjusting stuff on. Will did a great job restoring your grille and your bright work on the front of it. You can see that your trim and ornamentation fits like a glove. Front balance, nice work lining all that up, Dave. Those are always a little tricky. You got to be on those a little bit. Yeah, looks really good.
As I'm walking around the car, I'm thinking, this is a car now that 34 years of waiting, I can take it to one of the shows, and this is the car that's going to score 95 or better. That's been my dream. I wanted it to be my jewel, my centerpiece. My love for this car has allowed me to bring it to Mark and do that. And now that it's done and completed, I'd like to take it and show it and have it judged and show Mark's work and my affection for the car and share it with as many people as I can.
So you notice that these are your original ones. It's impossible to find NOS ones, so we cleaned them up. We did the best we could with them. They're not absolutely 1000% perfect, but we talked about that.
Right.
The trim just got back, I think, last week on it, so we had all the stainless steel, which there's a lot on an SE. Got your back of hood molding, back of fender molding, your stone guard moldings, belt, quarter belts, reveals, flip-top gas cap. Now, I didn't look at your broadcast sheet. Is that on there?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
That is absolutely a beautiful car.
Guys, you are the dream team. Dream makers. Awesome, awesome job. It's
absolutely beautiful.
Amazing. I just wish this color green was certainly not my #1 color. Everybody likes the reds and the blacks and the yellows, the high impact stuff. Plum crazy with Mopar fans. But it was just such a nice car, and at the time, at 16 years old, I wasn't going to be picky because my dad and brother helped me get this car bought. Options were a lot better than some 16-year-olds I went to school with, so I didn't complain about the color. All my family members that were a part of me getting this car were here to see this right now.
I understand about that, my friend. You know I do. But the good news is they are in heaven. They are looking down at you right now. They're probably able to see things wrong with our work, but I'm glad they're in heaven and we're down here. Because down here it looks
Because they're
great.
2-car guys and they'd be down here.
Yeah, they got the God spot up there. They
That's
can
right.
see everything.
That's right.
Tell Warman there's a dirt speck there. Tell Will I don't get dirt in my paint.
Whatever.
Once Mark's done with all the fine tuning and finessing and whatever he needs to do to finish up the car and its final shakedown drives, I got a spot in my garage, just waiting. A car cover and a nice warm garage for it to sit in Illinois now. Right.
Go ahead and take a look inside. I mean, I know it was pretty nice to begin with, but that's what it would have looked like in November of 1969 when it was sitting on the
Looks
brand
new, smells
Isn't it beautiful.
brand new.
Yeah, I know, I love that.
Certainly not a daily driver. It's gonna go to shows, gonna go to events. I didn't put in a lot of miles on a car when I bought it years ago. I'm lucky if I put 2,000 miles on it. It'll probably be maybe a few more now, but not a lot more.
Graveyard cars, baby. That's what we do. Absolutely.
It's a jewel.
You've got to be just so stoked to get this home for the kids. Now, is your son, he gets this car, right?
Plays his cards right.
If he's a good son. Is he
That's a long time from now. I think it should stay in my family. My son has his eye on it. He's hoping someday he gets it if he does what he's supposed to do, maybe someday. But for right now, I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna enjoy it for a good long time.
How old is he?
He's 32.
Oh, okay.
So he's gotta wait.
Is he working with you at the car lot?
Uh-huh.
Wow. So we just had a few things. That's why we're not going to go out and drive it today. Is number one, the weather is not very good for it. We still have to get the wheel alignment done on it. A couple little things under the hood that Dave wanted to get done. But to me, right now, the most important thing is that because of your time schedule and ours, we definitely wanted you out here, and I wanted to see that look on your face when you got your car. And
all you guys.
Thank you.
Terrific. I'm so happy. I'm entirely grateful to Graveyard Carz, Mark, crew. They have done everything I've imagined and more to put my car back on the road and give it back to me. A few days away from my birthday, and I never imagined I would be getting my car back as a birthday present. It's just, there's no words for it really that I can explain to you. The emotions are too much. I'm just extremely grateful to them.
Brian, thank you, brother.
Thank you, Mark.
Wish your pop and brother were here, but I know they're up there, and they're probably up there with my mama right now looking down on us, so it's all good. It's all good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, listen, I'm going to run you back to the airport. Ready to get something to eat?
You bet.
Let's do it. All right.
Yeah, it looks nice. See you guys. Take care, Brian.